The stars disappeared one by one. Una stood at the observation deck of the orbital platform Horizon, her coffee growing cold in her hands. She had seen many strange things during her 12 years in the Korean Space Defense Force. She had watched asteroids burn through the atmosphere. She had seen solar flares paint the sky in colors that had no names. But she had never seen the stars go dark dot at first. She thought it was a system error. Maybe the observation windows had malfunctioned. Maybe the sensors were broken. But then she looked closer, and her blood turned to ice. The stars were not gone. Something was blocking them. Something massive. Something that stretched across the entire sky like a curtain of shadow dot ships. Thousands of ships. The alarm began to scream. Una dropped her coffee and ran to the command center. Officers were shouting, screens were flashing red, and chaos filled every corner of the room. She pushed through the crowd and reached the main display. What she saw there made her stop breathing. An alien fleet hung above Earth. The ships were enormous, each one larger than any city on the planet below. They were shaped like twisted spines, covered in strange patterns that glowed with purple light. Una counted them quickly. 100, 200, 300. She stopped counting at 500 because more kept appearing from the darkness. What is this? Someone whispered behind her. Nobody answered. Nobody could. The main screen flickered, and suddenly a face appeared. It was not human. The creature had gray skin stretched tight over a skull that was too long. Its eyes were black pools with no whites, no pupils, nothing that Una could read. When it spoke, the voice was cold and empty, like wind through dead trees. "Creatures of Earth," it said. "We are the Valkyrie Dominion. We have traveled across the stars for 10,000 years. We have claimed 3,000 worlds. We have harvested 400 species. Today, we claim yours." The message played on every screen on Earth. Every phone, every television, every computer showed the same gray face and heard the same words. You have two choices. Submit and serve the Dominion, or resist and be destroyed. You have 72 hours to decide. There will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy. This is your only warning. The screen went dark. For a long moment, nobody on Horizon moved. Una could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. She thought about her mother and Bizon, probably watching the same message right now. She thought about her little brother, only 15 years old, who dreamed of becoming an astronaut. She thought about all 7 billion people on the planet below, all looking up at the sky and feeling the same terrible fear. Then Admiral Taiwu stepped forward. He was an old man, nearly 70 years old, with white hair and a face covered in scars from wars that most people had forgotten. He had fought in 3 conflicts, survived 2 assassination attempts, and buried more friends than he could count. He was tired. He was old. But when he looked at the alien fleet, his eyes were not afraid. They were angry. "Get me a channel to those ships," he said quietly. The communications officer hesitated. "Sir," they said, "no negotiation. Maybe we should wait for orders from the government. Maybe we should—" "I am not going to negotiate," Taiwu said. "I am going to answer." The officer swallowed hard and opened the channel. Taiwu straightened his uniform. He looked directly at the camera. And then he spoke 3 words that would change the history of the galaxy. "Come and try." Una felt something shift in the room. The fear did not disappear, but something else joined it. Something hot and bright and dangerous. She looked around and saw it in the eyes of every officer. Every soldier, every person on the station, defiance, far away. On the Valkyrie flagship, High Commander Velthos watched the humans' response with confusion. He had done this 400 times before. He had spoken those same words to 400 different species. And every single time, they had surrendered. Some had begged. Some had cried. Some had tried to bargain. But they had all submitted in the end. This was the first time anyone had told him no. "Interesting," he said to his advisor. "They are either very brave or very stupid." "Most likely stupid, Commander," the advisor replied. "Our scans show primitive technology. Chemical rockets, nuclear weapons, basic computing systems. They have no shields, no plasma weapons, no faster-than-light capability. Their military forces are scattered and disorganized. Our analysts estimate complete planetary control within 72 hours. Velthos nodded slowly. "Still, there is something strange about these creatures. Look at their history." He pulled up the data they had collected from Earth's radio signals and digital networks. Images flashed across the screen. Wars. Endless wars. Humans fighting humans for land, for resources, for ideas, for nothing at all. Cities burning. Bodies piling up. Weapons growing more and more deadly with each passing century. "They have been killing each other for their entire existence," Velthos said. "Most species evolve past such barbarism before they reach space travel." "A weakness," his advisor said. "They are divided. They will turn on each other when the invasion begins." "Perhaps," Velthos said. But something nagged at him. Something he could not name. He pushed the feeling aside. "Begin the invasion. Standard protocol. 200 dropships to the largest population center. Show them the power of the Dominion." The order went out. 200 ships detached from the fleet and began their descent toward Earth. They chose the Korean Peninsula as their landing zone because it had high population density and relatively weak military presence. An easy target. A quick victory. A lesson for the rest of the planet. They had no idea what was waiting for them. On horizon, Yuna watched the dropships fall like burning meteors through the atmosphere. She wanted to do something, anything, but there was nothing she could do from orbit. The battle would be fought on the ground, by soldiers she would never meet. "Admiral," she said quietly, "do we have a chance?" Taiwu did not answer for a long time. He watched the ships descend, his face unreadable. Finally, he spoke. "When I was young, my grandfather told me a story. During the war, his village was surrounded by enemies. They had no weapons, no food, no hope. Everyone said they should surrender. But my grandfather said no. He picked up a rock and said, 'I will fight with this rock until I die. And when I die, someone else will pick up my rock and keep fighting. And they will keep fighting until there is no one left. And even then, our ghosts will fight.'" The enemies heard this. They could have crushed the village easily, but they did not. "Do you know why?" Yuna shook her head. "Because they realized that victory would cost them more than it was worth. That is our only advantage, Lieutenant. We are too stubborn to die quietly." Below them, the first Volcari ships touched down on Earth. The invasion had begun, but so had humanity's answer. The Volcari warriors stepped out of their dropships with complete confidence. They had done this many times before. They knew exactly what would happen. The primitive creatures would run. They would scream. They would hide in their fragile buildings and pray to their meaningless gods. And then the Volcari would hunt them down, one by one, until the survivors learned to kneel. Commander Raxis led the first wave. He was tall, nearly 3 meters, with 4 arms and skin like polished stone. His plasma rifle hummed with deadly energy. His personal shield glowed faintly around his body, strong enough to stop any primitive weapon. He looked at the empty streets of the city and smiled. "They have fled," one of his soldiers said. "The cowards have already run." "Find them," Raxis ordered. "Check every building. Kill anyone who resists. Capture the rest for processing." The soldiers spread out in perfect formation. They had trained for this their entire lives. They were the elite of the Volcari Dominion, bred for war, enhanced with technology, unstoppable. They did not notice the shadows moving on the rooftops. Captain GA watched the aliens through her scope. She was lying flat on a building 300 meters away, hidden under a thermal blanket that masked her body heat. Around her, 47 other soldiers from the 707th Special Mission Group waited in silence. They had been preparing for this moment since the alien fleet appeared. While the politicians talked and the people panicked, the military had been moving. Soldiers had been deployed. Traps had been set. The streets that looked empty were not empty at all. "Patience," Jihei whispered into her radio. "Wait for them to spread out. Wait for my signal." Her heart was pounding, but her hands were steady. She had been a soldier for 15 years. She had fought in jungles and deserts and frozen mountains. She had faced enemies with better weapons and greater numbers. She had learned one simple truth. Victory did not go to the strongest. Victory went to the one who wanted it more. The aliens moved deeper into the city. They kicked open doors. They searched through empty shops and abandoned homes. They found nothing. Some of them began to relax. This was too easy. These humans were even more pathetic than expected. Commander Raxi stood in the center of a wide street checking his scanner. No life signs within 200 meters. They must have evacuated the entire area. Cowards. A soldier next to him laughed. "This will be over before sunset. We should—" He never finished his sentence. The bullet went through his eye and out the back of his skull. His shield was designed to stop plasma and energy weapons. It had no defense against a small piece of metal moving at 900 meters per second. For half a second, everyone froze. Then chaos erupted. Gunfire exploded from every direction. Bullets rained down from rooftops, from windows, from holes in the ground. The Valkyrie shields flickered and sparked as they tried to adapt to a weapon they had never encountered. Some shields held. Some did not. Soldiers began to fall. "Ambush!" Raxi screamed. "Return fire! Return fire!" The Valkyrie raised their plasma rifles and shot at the buildings. Walls exploded. Glass shattered. Fire bloomed in the darkness. But the humans kept shooting. They moved like ghosts, appearing for a moment to fire, and then vanishing before the aliens could aim. Jie put a bullet through another soldier's throat. "Keep moving," she ordered her team. "Don't stay in one place. Make them chase shadows." The 707th knew these streets. They had trained in this city for years. They knew every alley, every tunnel, every hiding spot. The Valkyrie had superior technology, but the humans had something better. Home advantage. Commander Raxis watched his soldiers die and felt something he had never felt before. Confusion. His training had no protocol for this. The primitive species were supposed to run. They were supposed to be afraid. Instead, they were hunting his warriors like animals. "Pull back," he ordered. "Regroup at the landing zone." The surviving Valkyrie retreated. They had started with 500 soldiers in this sector. Now there were less than 300. The humans followed them, striking from the shadows, never giving them a moment to rest. By the time Raxis reached the dropships, he had lost another 100 soldiers. And then the explosion started. The humans had buried bombs under the landing zone. They detonated in a chain reaction that turned 4 dropships into twisted metal. Raxis dove for cover as fire rained down around him. His shield finally gave out, overwhelmed by heat and force. A piece of shrapnel cut across his face, drawing dark blood. He lay in the dirt, looking up at the sky, and finally understood. These creatures were not cowards. They were not primitives. They were something far worse. They were predators. 6 hours later, High Commander Velthos received the report from the surface. He read it 3 times because he could not believe what it said. "Impossible," he whispered. His advisor stood beside him, equally shocked. "Commander, the numbers must be wrong. We lost contact with the entire ground force. 1,800 soldiers. All of them. The numbers are correct," Velthos said. "I verified them myself. But how? Their weapons are primitive. Their soldiers are soft. They should not have been able to. Enough." Velthos cut him off. "We underestimated them. That was our mistake. We will not make it again." He ordered reconnaissance drones to survey the battlefield. What they found made even his cold blood run colder. The humans had arranged the Valkyrie bodies in the center of the city. They had spelled out words in the alien language, using the corpses of the fallen soldiers. "We don't surrender." Velthos stared at the image for a long time. In his entire career, he had never seen anything like this. Other species fought back, yes. Some even won small victories before being crushed. But none of them had ever done this. None of them had ever sent a message written in enemy blood. What are these creatures? His advisor whispered. Velthos did not answer. He was thinking about the human history files he had studied earlier. The endless wars. The constant violence. Generation after generation of conflict, each one more brutal than the last. He had dismissed it as primitive barbarism. Now he saw it differently. Humans were not primitive. They were specialists. They had spent their entire existence learning how to kill. Meanwhile, deep beneath the city of Seoul, Dr. Yoonji was running out of time. She was a physicist, not a soldier. She had spent her life studying theoretical energy patterns, not fighting aliens. But when the Valkyrie shields had first appeared on her sensors, she had seen something interesting. A flaw. A tiny weakness in the frequency modulation. For the past 48 hours, she had been working without sleep, trying to build a device that could exploit that weakness. Her team had brought her pieces of a damaged Valkyrie rifle recovered from the battle. She had studied its energy signature, mapped its wavelength, and finally found the answer. "I have it," she said to the military officer standing behind her. "I can shut down their shields. All of them. Every ship in the fleet." The officer stared at her. "You're sure?" "I'm sure. But I need time to build the transmitters. And I need someone to get them close to the alien ships." The officer nodded slowly. "That's going to cost lives." "I know," Yoonji said quietly. "But if we don't do this, we lose everything." Above them, the Valkyrie fleet waited. High Commander Velthos was planning his next move. He would not send ground troops again. He would simply burn the planet from orbit. It was wasteful, but effective. The humans had proven too dangerous to harvest. He did not know that a small woman in a basement laboratory had just signed his death warrant. The first battle was over. The war had just begun. High Commander Velthos stood before the holographic map of Earth, his black eyes cold with fury. The blue and green planet floated in front of him, peaceful and beautiful, completely unaware of the death that was about to rain down upon it. "Charge the orbital bombardment weapons," he ordered. "Target their major cities. We will burn them from the sky." His advisor hesitated. "Commander, the Council wanted this planet for harvesting. If we destroy the population centers, we lose valuable resources." "The Council did not fight these creatures," Velthos replied. "I did. They are too dangerous to harvest. We will sterilize the planet and move on. There are other worlds, other species. We do not need this one." The weapons began to charge. Massive energy collectors on each ship started to glow with deadly light. In 30 minutes, they would unleash enough firepower to turn every major city on Earth into ash. 7 billion lives erased in an instant. On the orbital platform horizon, Yuna watched the enemy ships with growing dread. She had seen the energy readings. She knew what was coming. "How long do we have?" she asked. 28 minutes, the sensor officer replied. Maybe less. 28 minutes. Not enough time to evacuate anyone. Not enough time to say goodbye. Not enough time to do anything except watch the end of everything she had ever known. Then her communicator crackled. Horizon, this is Lieutenant Do-hyun. I'm leading Eagle Squadron from the lunar base. We're inbound to the alien fleet. Do you copy? Yuna grabbed the communicator. Do-hyun, this is Horizon. What are you doing? Your fighters can't penetrate their shields. You'll be destroyed before you get close. We know, Do-hyun said calmly. We're not trying to destroy them. We're delivering a package. Yuna's heart stopped. What package? Dr. Yoonji finished her shield disruptors. 12 of them. We have them loaded on our fighters. If we can get close enough to plant them on the enemy hulls, they'll knock out every shield in the fleet. Then your nuclear missiles can do the rest. If you get close enough, Yuna said, their defensive systems will tear you apart. Probably, Do-hyun agreed. But we have to try. If we don't, everyone dies anyway. Yuna closed her eyes. She wanted to tell him to turn back. She wanted to tell him there had to be another way. But there wasn't. They both knew it. Good luck, she whispered. We don't need luck, Do-hyun said. We're too angry to die. Eagle Squadron consisted of 24 fighters. They were small, fast, and completely outdated compared to Valkyrie technology. Their pilots were young, most of them barely out of training. They had families waiting for them on Earth, dreams they had not yet lived, futures they would never see. They flew toward the alien fleet anyway. Do-hyun led the formation. His hands were steady on the controls, but his mind was racing. He thought about his mother, who had taught him to fly kites when he was a boy. He thought about his girlfriend, who was probably watching the sky right now, praying for a miracle. He thought about all the people who would die if he failed. He was not going to fail. All fighters, spread out, he ordered. Make them divide their fire. We only need 12 of us to reach the ships. The rest provide cover. The squadron split into 12 groups of 2. They scattered across the void like seeds in the wind, each pair carrying one precious disruptor device. The Valkyrie opened fire. Plasma bolts lit up the darkness. The first fighter exploded 3 seconds into the run. Then another. Then another. The alien targeting systems were fast and deadly, picking off the human ships one by one. Do-hyun pushed his fighter to maximum speed. Warning lights flashed across his dashboard. His hull temperature was rising. His shields were failing. He did not care. Keep going, he shouted. Don't stop for anything. Beside him, his wingman took a direct hit and vanished in a ball of fire. Do-hyun felt the heat wash over his cockpit. He pushed forward. The massive hull of a Valkyrie warship loomed ahead. It was so big that it blocked out the stars. Do-hyun could see the weapon ports along its surface, each one spitting death into the void. He could see the bridge, where alien commanders were probably watching him approach with confusion. Why was this tiny ship still coming? Why didn't it turn back? Didn't the pilot know he was going to die? Do-hyun smiled. He armed the disruptor and flew straight at the hull. At the last possible second, he released the device and pulled up hard. The disruptor attached to the alien metal and began its work. Then the plasma bolt hit. His fighter came apart around him. Fire and vacuum tore at his body. He felt pain, terrible pain, and then nothing at all. But the disruptor was in place. Across the fleet, 11 other pilots made the same sacrifice. Some of them screamed as they died. Some of them laughed. One of them was singing her daughter's favorite song. They came from different countries, different backgrounds, different lives. But in that moment, they were all the same. They were human. 24 fighters had launched. 3 survived. But 12 disruptors had reached their targets. On the Valkyrie flagship, the lights went out high. Commander Velthos stumbled as his ship shuddered around him. Alarms screamed. Crew members shouted in confusion. The holographic displays flickered and died. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Our shields," his advisor gasped. "They're gone. All of them. Every ship in the fleet." "That's impossible." "How?" He never finished the question. The nuclear missiles arrived. Earth had been building nuclear weapons for 200 years. They had thousands of them, enough to destroy their own planet many times over. It was a dark achievement, a testament to humanity's capacity for destruction. But now, for the first time, those weapons had a worthy target. The missiles hit the unshielded Valkyrie ships with devastating effect. Nuclear fire bloomed in the darkness of space. Ships that had conquered entire star systems were torn apart like paper. The flagship itself took 3 direct hits, ripping open its hull and sending debris spinning into the void. Velthos was thrown across the bridge. He crashed into a wall and felt bones break. Through the shattered windows, he could see his fleet burning. 23 ships destroyed in the first wave. More missiles were coming. His weapons were still charging, but they needed shields to protect them during the firing sequence. Without shields, they were vulnerable. "Retreat!" he screamed. "All ships retreat!" The surviving Valkyrie vessels turned and fled. They had come to Earth expecting easy prey. They left with their fleet in ruins and their pride in ashes. On horizon, Yuna watched them go. Tears were streaming down her face. Tears of grief for the pilots who had died. Tears of relief that the bombardment had been stopped. Tears of something else, something she could not name. Maybe it was hope. "We did it," someone whispered. "No," Yuna said quietly. "They did it. The pilots, they saved us." She looked at the sensor display. The Valkyrie fleet was damaged but not destroyed. They would regroup. They would come back. This was not the end, but it was a beginning. Far away, in her underground laboratory, Dr. Yunji received the news of their victory. She did not celebrate. Instead, she turned to her next project. They had proven that the Valkyrie could be hurt. Now they needed to prove they could be beaten. And for that, humanity would need new weapons, new ships, new everything. The aliens had underestimated Earth once. They would not do it again, but neither would humanity. The Galactic Assembly had not gathered in full session for 300 years. The last time was when a supernova threatened to destroy an entire sector. Before that, it was a plague that wiped out 2 species. Events that shook the galaxy to its core. Events that required every voice, every vote, every species to attend. Now they gathered again. And the reason was a small blue planet called Earth. Ambassador Suman stood at the entrance to the Great Hall, trying to control her breathing. She was 42 years old, a career diplomat who had spent her life negotiating trade agreements and border disputes. She had never addressed more than 20 people at once. Today, she would speak to representatives of over 100 alien species. The hall was enormous, a sphere of floating platforms that stretched in every direction. Each platform held delegates from a different world. Some were humanoid. Some were not. Some had bodies made of light. Some had no bodies at all. They watched her with eyes and sensors and organs she could not identify. They whispered to each other in languages that sounded like music or thunder, or nothing at all. She walked to the central platform and waited for silence. It came slowly. The assembly was not used to paying attention to primitive species. Most of them had never heard of Earth before the Valkyrie invasion. Now they stared at her with curiosity, and she noticed a hint of fear. Good. "Distinguished representatives," she began. Her voice was steady, stronger than she expected. I am Ambassador Suman of the United Earth Coalition. I come to you not as a beggar seeking mercy, but as a representative of a species that has earned its place among the stars. Murmurs rippled through the hall. A Valkyrie delegate rose to speak, but the assembly speaker silenced him with a gesture. 3 months ago, the Valkyrie Dominion sent a fleet of 500 warships to our planet. They expected us to surrender. They called us primitive. They said we had no shields, no plasma weapons, no faster-than-light capability. They were right about all of these things. She paused and looked around the hall. They were wrong about us. The hall went silent. We did not surrender. We did not beg. We fought. With weapons your children would call ancient. With soldiers who knew they were going to die and attacked anyway. With scientists who worked without sleep to find weaknesses in technology they had never seen before. And when the Valkyrie charged their bombardment weapons to burn our cities from orbit, we sent 24 pilots on a suicide mission to stop them. Only 3 came back. But the bombardment never happened. She took a deep breath. The Valkyrie fleet retreated. 23 of their ships were destroyed. Thousands of their soldiers were killed. And now they hide at the edge of our solar system, afraid to attack, afraid to leave, afraid of a species they called primitive. The Valkyrie delegate jumped to his feet. Lies! This creature speaks lies. We were not defeated by these animals. We simply you chose to run, Suman interrupted. Her voice cut through his like a blade. And now you have called for reinforcements from your homeworld. 50,000 ships, according to our intelligence. You plan to return and finish what you started. The hall erupted. Delegates shouted at each other. The Valkyrie representative was screaming denials. But Suman stood calm and waited. When the noise died down, she continued. I did not come here to ask for your help. I came here to deliver a warning. You have seen what we did with ancient weapons and untrained soldiers. Now imagine what we will do with time, with resources, with your technology. She pulled out a small device and activated it. A holographic image appeared in the center of the hall. It was a ship, sleek and deadly, unlike anything Earth had ever built before. This is the Defiance, Suman said. The first human warship with faster-than-light capability. We built it in 3 months using captured Valkyrie technology. Our engineers did not just copy it. They improved it. The Defiance is faster than any ship in the Valkyrie fleet. Its weapons are stronger. Its shields are better. The delegates stared at the image. Some of them looked impressed. Others looked terrified. In 3 months, we went from knowing nothing about interstellar travel to building a ship that can compete with the best in the galaxy. Imagine what we will build in a year. In 10 years. In 100. She let that sink in. The Valkyrie call us primitive. Perhaps we are, by your standards. But we learn fast. Faster than any species you have ever encountered. Every time you hurt us, we come back stronger. Every weapon you use against us, we steal and improve. Every mistake you make, we remember forever. The Valkyrie delegate was pale now. He understood what she was saying. So did everyone else in the hall. You can be our enemies, Suman said. You can try to destroy us like the Valkyrie did. But know this, we will not die easily. We will fight until the last human is dead. And even then, we will find a way to hurt you from our graves. We are the most stubborn, most vengeful, most determined species in the galaxy. We do not know how to quit. She smiled, and there was no warmth in it. Or you can be our friends. Help us stop the Valkyrie. Share your knowledge and technology. Trade with us. Work with us. And in return, you will have the most loyal, most capable, most dangerous allies you have ever known. She stepped back. The choice is yours. But make it quickly. The Valkyrie reinforcements will arrive in 6 weeks. When they do, we will fight them alone if we must. And we will win. But it would be easier with friends. The hall was silent. Then, slowly, a delegate from a species Suman did not recognize rose to its feet. It was small, covered in blue fur, with eyes that shimmered like opals. My people were conquered by the Valkyrie 400 years ago, it said. We submitted because we thought we had no choice. We have regretted it every day since. I would like to know more about this alliance. Another delegate stood. Then another. Then a dozen more. The Valkyrie representatives stormed out of the hall, but nobody noticed. They were too busy crowding around the human ambassador, asking questions, offering help, making promises. Back on Earth, General Yaha watched the broadcast with quiet satisfaction. Operation Lazarus was working even better than he had hoped. Phase 1 was the defense of Earth. Phase 2 was building the Defiance. Phase 3 was diplomacy. Now it was time for Phase 4. Demi Captain Mireille, he said to his aide. The young captain appeared on his screen moments later. She was barely 30 years old, with sharp eyes and a reputation for doing the impossible. She had been first in her class at every military school she attended. She had flown more combat missions than pilots twice her age. She was exactly what humanity needed right now. Captain, Yaho said, the Defiance is ready for launch. You will command it. Mireille nodded. Where are we going, sir? The Valkyrie have a staging ground at the edge of our solar system. 47 ships guarding the path their reinforcements will take. Intelligence says they think they're safe out there. They think we can't reach them. A slow smile spread across Mireille's face. And we're going to prove them wrong. You're outnumbered 47-1, Yaho warned. The odds are impossible. With respect, sir, Mireille said, humans don't believe in impossible. We just call it Thursday. Yaho laughed. It was the first time he had laughed in months. Good luck, Captain. Make them remember why they should never have come here. I don't need luck, Mireille replied. I have 300 angry humans and a ship full of weapons. That's more than enough. The Defiance launched 6 hours later. 300 crew members. 1 ship. Against an empire that had conquered 3,000 worlds. The galaxy was about to learn what humans could really do. The Defiance dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the asteroid field. Captain Mireille stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. 47 red dots clustered together in a defensive formation. 47 Valkyrie warships, each one larger than her vessel, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a small moon, and 1 blue dot. The Defiance, alone. All hands, battle stations, Mireille announced calmly. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Around her, the bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. Navigator Dongwook plotted escape routes through the asteroids. Weapons Officer Jisoo ran final checks on the missile systems. Engineer Hyunwoo monitored the engines, ready to push them beyond their limits. They were 300 humans against thousands of aliens. They should have been terrified. They were smiling. The Valkyrie fleet detected them immediately. Commander Thraxus, who had been left in charge of the staging ground, stared at his sensors with disbelief. 1 ship? He said. They sent 1 ship? It appears so, Commander, his tactical officer replied. Scans indicate it is the vessel they call Defiance. The one they built from our technology. Thraxus laughed. They are either insane or suicidal. Probably both. All ships, engage. Destroy them. 47 Valkyrie warships turned toward the lone human vessel. Their weapons began to charge. In seconds, they would unleash enough firepower to vaporize a small planet. Mireille watched them come. Dongwook, take us into the asteroid field. Jisoo, hold fire until I give the order. Captain, The asteroids will limit our movement, Dongwook warned. We could get trapped. I know, Myray said. But the asteroids will also limit theirs. And we're better at flying through tight spaces than they are. She smiled. Humans have been racing cars through mountain roads for 200 years. Let's see how their pilots handle a real obstacle course. The Defiance dove into the asteroid field. The Valkyrie followed. It was chaos. Massive rocks tumbled through the void, spinning and colliding, creating a maze of death. The Valkyrie ships tried to pursue, but they were too large, too slow. One clipped an asteroid and lost a wing. Another tried to blast a path through and accidentally hit its own ally. The Defiance danced between the rocks like it was born for this. Dongwook's hands flew across his controls, making adjustments faster than thought. Left, right, up, down, spin, roll, dive. He had been flying since he was 16 years old. He had competed in illegal racing tournaments through the ruins of old cities. He had once navigated a cargo ship through a collapsing space station just to win a bet. This was the most fun he had had in years. Coming up on firing position, he announced. Jisoo, target the 3 ships in the lead, Myray ordered. Fire on my mark. The Defiance burst out of an asteroid shadow, appearing directly behind 3 Valkyrie destroyers. The aliens had not expected that. Their rear shields were weaker than their front shields, a design flaw that human engineers had discovered during their analysis. Fire missiles streaked through the void. They hit the Valkyrie ships before they could turn, punching through the weak rear armor and detonating inside. 3 explosions lit up the darkness. 3 down, Jisoo reported. 44 to go. Take us back into the field, Myray said. Let them chase us. The battle became a hunt. But the humans were not the prey. Myray used every trick she could think of. She led the Valkyrie ships into narrow passages where their size worked against them. She hid behind asteroids and ambushed them when they passed. She targeted their engines and left them drifting helplessly while she moved on to the next victim. Hour after hour, the battle raged. The Defiance took damage. Her hull was scarred with plasma burns. One of her missile launchers was destroyed. 17 crew members were dead, killed when a lucky shot breached the lower deck. But the Valkyrie were dying faster. In the engine room, Hyunwoo worked miracles. The engines were overheating. The power systems were failing. Everything was falling apart around him. But he held it together with skill, determination, and a creative use of tools that would have made his instructors weep. Engine 3 is gone, he reported. Engine 2 is running at 50%. Engine 1 is making a noise I've never heard before, and I'm pretty sure something is on fire somewhere. Can you keep us flying? Myray asked. Captain, I've been keeping this ship flying for 6 hours with nothing but spare parts and pure anger. Yes, I can keep us flying. But maybe we could stop getting shot soon. Working on it, Myray replied. On the bridge, Jisoo was running out of missiles. She had started with 200. Now she had 12. Captain, I need to switch to the plasma cannons. But they're not as powerful as the missiles. Make every shot count, Myray said. Jisoo nodded. She had been a sniper before she became a weapons officer. She knew how to make every shot count. The battle continued. By the end of the 8th hour, the asteroid field was full of Valkyrie wreckage. 17 ships destroyed. 12 more damaged so badly they could barely move. The remaining 18 had formed a tight defensive circle, too afraid to pursue any further. Commander Thraxis stood on his damaged bridge, surrounded by the bodies of his crew. Half of his fleet was gone. The ship that had killed him was still out there, still fighting, refusing to die. What are these creatures? He whispered. His communications officer looked up with horror in his eyes. Commander, I'm receiving a transmission from the human ship. Put it through. Captain Myray, appeared on the screen. Her face was covered in blood and soot. Her uniform was torn, but her eyes were bright and fierce, like a predator that had cornered its prey. "Commander," she said, "you have a choice. Surrender now, and we will let your surviving ships leave. Continue fighting, and we will destroy every single one of you. You have 1 minute to decide." Thraxus stared at her. His fleet outnumbered hers 18-1. He still had thousands of soldiers, dozens of weapons, superior technology. By all logic, he should fight. But logic had died somewhere in the asteroid field, along with 29 of his ships. "We surrender," he said. The surviving Volcari ships powered down their weapons. The battle was over. On the Defiance, the crew erupted in cheers. They had done the impossible. 1 ship against 47. And they had won. But Myrae did not celebrate. She was looking at the casualty reports. 47 of her people were dead. Another 60 were wounded. The ship was barely holding together. They had won, but the cost was high. It was always high. Far away. On the Dominion homeworld, High Commander Velthos received the news. The staging ground was gone. The reinforcement fleet had no safe path to Earth. The war that was supposed to be easy had become a disaster. The Council of Lords demanded an explanation. Velthos stood before them, broken and defeated, and delivered his report. "We underestimated them," he said. "We thought they were primitive because they had not discovered faster than light travel. We thought they were weak because their bodies are fragile. We thought they would surrender because every other species did." He paused, his voice heavy with shame. "We were wrong. These humans are not weak. They are forged in fire. They have been fighting each other for their entire history, and they have become something terrible. They adapt faster than we can predict. They sacrifice themselves for strangers. They find hope in hopelessness. They refuse to accept defeat, even when defeat is certain." He looked at the council, his black eyes empty. "The universe underestimated Earth once. We will not make that mistake again. I recommend immediate withdrawal from human space and a permanent ban on contact with their species." The council agreed. 1 year later, Admiral Una stood on the bridge of the Earth's Vengeance, flagship of humanity's new fleet. 100 ships flew in formation behind her, each one built by human hands, crewed by human soldiers, powered by human determination. The Volcari Dominion had signed a peace treaty. 12 other species had requested alliance with Earth. The galaxy had learned to respect the small blue planet and its stubborn, dangerous, wonderful people. Una thought about everyone who had died to make this moment possible. Do-Yun and his pilots, the soldiers of the 707th, the crew of the Defiance who never made it home, her own family lost in the first days of the invasion. She would carry them with her, always, but she would also carry something else: pride, hope, the knowledge that humanity had faced its greatest test and refused to fail. The stars were no longer dark. They were waiting. And humanity was ready to meet them.